Alrighty. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our webinar on building an agentic knowledge base. We'll let people file in a little bit. As people are joining, do you mind going to the chat and leaving where you're calling in from? I want to see who's the winner of the closest to the pylon office and farthest from the pylon office. Let's see. Okay, we got a New York. Oh, we got a UK. Oh my God.
Woohoo!
I'm not actually
Philly.
sure how Cheltenham is, but oh, Philly, nice. Utah, okay.
Brazil.
Oh, Brazil. Okay, so we got a potentially a southern hemisphere. That's cool. Nice.
ATL. There you go, JP.
Atlanta. That's where I'm from.
Nice. Nice. We're hitting every state here. This is great. Yeah, so yeah, and if you're just coming in, we asked everybody to drop their location in the chat just to see who's closest and farthest from the pylon office.
Chi-Town. There we go. Yeah. Also, if you're in the support-driven community, give a little love there. I think there's a lot of folks joining from support-driven.
Nice.
Ireland. Oh, wow. Portugal.
Whoa.
I'm Portuguese. I'm very happy about this. Hey.
Pretty.
This is cool.
Or early? It's late there. Yeah, it's late. So thanks for logging on at such a evening hour. Nice, Toronto.
Pylon office. Winner of the closest
That's
to
so
me.
funny. The pylon office is in San Francisco by the Caltrain station. It's hard to miss if you ever come here. It's bright purple. So. All right, cool. I think that's probably long enough. We've let people file in. So why don't we get started? Welcome, everybody, to the Pylon X HackerRank webinar, where we will be talking about how to build an agentic knowledge base today. Today, we have two esteemed guests, Victoria and Jonathan. Why don't you two introduce yourself? V, why don't you get started?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining wherever you are. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm our head of global support here at HackerRank. I've been with the organization about 2 years, and JP is probably one of the best hires I made in that time. JP, you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you. I'm Jonathan Pollock, otherwise known as JP, and I've been with the HackerRank team for a little over a year now. I'm a program manager on the technical support team, primarily responsible for transitioning us to Pylon in Q1 and 2 last year, and setting up automated processes for the team, analytics, and of course, knowledge base related items. So excited to chat.
Cool. And I am your host, I guess, Robert. I am one of the co-founders and the chief product officer here at Pylon. Just real quick, Pylon, for those who are unfamiliar, Pylon is an all-in-one support system for B2B companies, such as HackerRank. And we kind of support sources across all of the places that modern companies are talking to their customers, whether that's Slack, Teams, Discord, Telegram, or WhatsApp, or any of the more traditional places like chat widget, email, ticket forms, maybe via API, that kind of thing. So cool. Happy today to introduce HackerRank. Why don't we get into kind of like how you set up your flow and like what HackerRank is overall, so people can familiarize themselves with it. V, why don't you take this one?
Yeah, happy to take it. Thank you. So for those who don't know, HackerRank is the developer skills company. So we help organizations hire, evaluate, and develop technical talent. And our reach is pretty massive. We have 2,500 customers, 3 million developers throwing through our assessment platform, and a community of over 30 million developers. So our customer space spans from every vertical you can think of: AI first companies, Fortune 500, consumer brands, financial services, automotive, consulting firms, like really this full spectrum of customer base. And what we actually do is power the technical hiring process. And you can think of this in two parts. There's typically a take home assessment where candidates solve coding problems, work in real code repositories, and interact with AI assistants. And then there's the live interview rounds where hiring teams evaluate candidates in real time on things like code review, feature build, system design. And it's evolved a lot. We've moved off and away from basic algorithmic questions like how many golf balls fit inside a 747 into a full cursor like IDE experience that mirrors how developers actually do their work today, AI assistants and all. And so our customers range everywhere from non-technical TA teams to engineers, engineering leadership, and our support team needs to be able to oscillate those conversations based on who's reaching out and what's going on. So there's a little bit about HackerRank.
Cool. And what does the support org kind of look like today?
Yeah, so I'd say when I joined a couple years ago, we had essentially for lack of a better word, with all due respect, a legacy B2C customer support function. We were on Zendesk and we were reactive, and for one of the challenges we had is that our candidate emails were largely going unanswered. And that's a problem because even though our candidates aren't our paying customers, our customers deeply value that candidate support exists. And if a candidate has a bad experience on with one of our assessments, that reflects on our customer's employer brand. So it's very a strategic move for us to be able to support that while also prioritizing our customers. So we had to rethink the whole thing, migrating from Zendesk to Pylon and using that as a catalyst to transform us from really a legacy model into a more of a B2B technical support engineering organization is where we're at today.
Yeah, and so it sounds like there was this very strategic shift to like cover like these different groups of folks, both on a B2B site and a B2C site now. So that's really cool. I guess like curveball question here: why did you choose Pylon in the first place? Just curious.
Ooh, yeah, we interviewed a lot of other platforms in the process. And I actually discounted Pylon off the bat because I go, oh, it's a Slack plugin. At the time, this was very early in Pylon. This is 2024. I think when I started looking at things, and it was like, oh no, we actually I wasn't even sure that email was supported. Like from what I could tell with like the online resources and what I had available before I actually started the conversations, it looked like it was Slack only. I'm like, oh, that's not us. And so what really sold me is that we were trying to work with Zendesk and tried to bring in another AI tool into Zendesk. And just the experience felt so artificial. It felt so bolted on. Things didn't work right. There was a lot of effort in trying to make this experience smooth. And that was just really prevalent in the experience with Zendesk. And so when we looked at other options, what really stood out is how AI was being built in to everything that Pylon was thinking about, that we were thinking about B2B, that we were thinking about the complexity, or y'all, I feel like part of the team sometimes, that you were thinking about the complexity of B2B. It's not these key value pair, question answer pairs coming through. There's customer specific nuances and workflows in the mix. It's not a one size fits all answer, depending on who you're talking to. And here's a platform that's being built from the ground up with all of those considerations and the mechanisms to be able to track complexity through triggers and audit logs. And honestly, just being one of my favorite features is leveraging natural language prompts to generate dashboards. Just everything was made so intuitively and so easy for a lot of the complexity we were dealing with. So there you go. That's what it was.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I love to hear kind of that customer love. So just struck my own ego and thought it was all the way. Anyway, this is actually a good flow into our next question. So narrowing in on the knowledge base itself, because that's kind of the topic today. Would love to hear more about kind of that before state with the knowledge base where it didn't have that much AI or didn't have all the functionality you wanted, and the present state of knowledge base at HackerRank, and then maybe like your future facing opportunities. Let's start in the past and move forward. So
Yeah, I'll do past and where we can, then maybe BP, you can chime in on the future and where we can go with all of it. So I got to give a shout out to our technical writing team. We've got Abu Bakar, Sumal, and Bangalore holding it down for us. They're awesome. their primary focus is customer-facing product documentation. So we're extremely spoiled in that respect to have a technical documentation team. But again, they're heavily involved in the release process. And when Abu Bakr joined us about a year ago as our senior technical writer, when I joined too, our docs were not in a good way. There was, with all due respect, the function itself was just not getting the love that it needed for our docs to really be updated. So the information was outdated. A lot of it was written more like lengthy sort of essays. We didn't have consistency in the styling and the formatting. We had GIFs that we needed to update to match our UIs. And things were duplicated across articles, scattered in a place. If you updated it in one section, I had to go trace it, make sure you fixed it in 3 other places. It was largely inefficient. So when Abu Bakr joined, he just handled all of that, removed the duplicity, made sure we had consistent style, structure, all of that happening as we had migrated onto Pylon at the same time. So it's like, here we have this new powerful tool, and now we have this new powerful technical writer who, did the due diligence on what would become our training materials for support. And Abu Bakr, the nice thing, I'm giving him a little love on this because really, in some ways, he should be part of this conversation, but also the middle of the night for him. But it's the best kind of alignment you have with someone when you're just, what good looks like in our docs. And there would be moments where I'm like, oh, we should make it so that our docs are tailored for like agents reading them, even more so than humans as time goes on. He's like, I'm already thinking that way. So it's just such a gift when you have somebody that works that way with you. And so it was really nice to have those strong opinions on what good looks like. So after we migrated to Pylon, one of the things that we did was to bring Pylon into our Slack channel where we have internal documentation requests. This existed before, but we had no tracking, no updates. It was like someone in the company would realize the documentation's out of date. They drop a note in the Slack channel and you just kind of pray that it got handled. Whereas we installed Pylon, every comment made a ticket for us. We were tracking on the back end, and Abu Bakr would just fix it. Like in 5 minutes, it was like, okay, done, fixed, boom. And then we had the mechanisms through Pylon to show everyone, look, this is now live. So we went from this place of kind of hoping documentation would be updated to a really robust mechanism for ensuring those things happened. So it was really like now every request is a ticket with an owner and a status. And that has also improved our docs quite a bit.
I think there's a really good nugget in here where I think people always think it's just the tool or it's the shiny thing, but there's really a lot of kind of like structure around it that needs to get built up, like this process that you have around the knowledge base and like what you need to actually run that, as well as Abu Bakr himself. Like it's not just about like getting the random like hammer. You have to have somebody who knows how to use a hammer, right? And so the analogy here is like you found that person who has that really good sense of taste, is willing to grind it out and like figure out and own the knowledge base. And so that's really, really a special thing. So cool. Would love to dig into also maybe the fact that you have three different setups floating around here. Yeah. Would love to hear more about that and how you set that up, because I know you guys have a more complex knowledge base setup and workspace setup.
Yeah, and I want to make sure, like I'm talking a lot, JP, we're going to give him a chance to speak. And in fact, I'll share some things and I'll give you a chance to jump in too. One of the challenging things for us we found with AI is realizing or recognizing who's asking the question. Is it one of our customers or our customer's customer, a candidate? Right. And that kind of stems back to this bloated email. We had support@hackerrank.com. And that email was used for everyone, whether you were a customer, a candidate, someone in our community, everyone shared the same email. So it was really hard to tell depending on the message, because sometimes the message would literally just be help or, without a lot of detail. So it's like, oh, who is this? So we ended up with a multi-tenant setup with Pylon, and that's been incredibly powerful because it also allowed us to get really good at training the agents based on the knowledge base and the issues that were coming in to make sure we had targeted answers for the segment that's writing in. So on the candidate side, the knowledge base powers our AI agent. We're resolving how much, JP? 70%?
70 and 75%.
bam, 75% of all candidate issues in real time autonomously. So we went from a world where most of our candidates never heard back from support. Like, ooh, sad. Like imagine being like in the moment of taking an online assessment and something goes wrong. You're like, it's a product issue. I know it. And you reach out to support and you send the email and you stare and like nothing ever happens. Right. So we've gone from that to now, like it squashed our metrics down. It wasn't like this incremental drive. It was like real-time response and resolution. All right, fantastic. This is great. Yeah. Anything you want to add on the candidate side, JP?
Yeah, I mean, I would just highlight, you think about a candidate in an assessment for a prospective employer that they really want to work for, it's high stakes and you run into a technical issue, send an email to support@hackerrank.com and then never get a response. It would be incredibly distressing in the middle of your assessment. But now getting an instant answer is really the complete opposite of that, where you immediately have some form of resolution to your problem, and you can just move on with the assessment. So really just transformative change that was brought to be by the Pylon AI agents.
And that was you also helping to like take us through a little bit of that journey, what it looked like.
Yeah. Well, we talked about the state of the knowledge base and the future, and so this is actually a pretty good view to maybe some future plans, right, for the knowledge base, leveraging some of the Pylon capabilities. Um, so, in as part of the training of the agents, we first actually used the Pylon AI agents in an internal QA mode before internal QA was actually an official Pylon feature. We had Advith CTO write a script for us that we then baked into Pylon triggers that would have the agent respond via internal note, so that we could see, okay, if the agent was responding externally, what would it say prior
And
to
to be
this? Actually,
clear, that's been baked into the product now for
Yes.
all those
yeah,
watching. That's not a you may
Add
not
this
know
solution.
that.
Yes.
Yeah.
with that solution. Yeah, prior to that actually being a GA feature. So, so we were for about 3 months. I was actually going through and reviewing every single response from the candidate tenant AI agent, and QAing and using the findings from that exercise to work with our technical writers to make enhancements to the knowledge base content. With the agents being trained on the knowledge base, all of the responses being produced were, derived from knowledge base content. So it was really important to have that tight feedback loop combined with the, 100% coverage of, hey, I'm taking a look at every single response that the agent's delivering here to ensure high quality, because obviously, in addition to increasing the percentage of tickets you're able to automate with the agent, you also want to be able to minimize the rate of, say, hallucinations or incomprehensive responses. So that was a fun exercise last summer. But
Make it fun back.
yeah, it wasn't as fun while it was going. It's like midnight going, okay, I have 150 left to go through from today. But that's the nature of, volumes and making sure that we're really, rolling up our sleeves and digging deep. So,
Was
uh,
schlep work, but incredibly important schlep work, super important. And that's very much how we went on the candidate side. On the customer side, we wanted to be really careful. We're using it a bit differently. So yes, the Advith solution actually became an internal co-pilot for our support team. We believe human interaction in B2B is so incredibly important that instead of jumping ahead like we did with the candidate issues, even though we saw this tremendous success, we really wanted to maintain the human touch. So that co-pilot, the Advith solution, now evolved, actually drafts the response that our agents can choose to send, or they can add their own, sort of flavor to it, make it sound more like them. But here's a guided response in how they can respond to these issues, which helps them out too. So always human in the loop for our actual customer, our B2B business.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that there's some interesting points here too around that like the schlep work is necessary and you just have to put that work in. And I think AI is not like a magic bullet. Like it is a tool for your team to eliminate a lot of those questions long term, but you still have to kind of like put the work in. It's not just you turn it on and then it suddenly magically does everything for you. And I think that's like a really important point, just with AI in general, not just the agentic KCS flow or any of the other AI flows. So,
It's the unsexy part, and it's very real, and it just doesn't get enough recognition to a degree. Like, this is what it looks like right now to actually get a really good AI response.
yeah, exactly.
In
It
large
sounds
part,
like
exercise, but it's worth the grind to be able to move forward with confidence.
Yep.
yeah. Yeah, I think there's another interesting point here around like building confidence in this entire flow, and like as as a human, like there's obviously like some amount of suspicion towards AI. I guess like JP, how did you kind of like think about building that confidence over time as you were going through this flow?
Yeah, very careful tracking of the agent performance was one. So I was actually taking account. So I'll back up a second. We had a rating system for the agent responses that we used that considered comprehensiveness, accuracy, even formatting of the response was part of that. And then for each issue that came in, I would also make an indication of the state of the knowledge base content as it related to the topic in that issue. So it rate whether or indicate whether an article already existed or whether there was a new article needed or an update to an existing article or just no article at all, right? And so the careful tracking of the agent performance was one, and then being able to see the uh, fruits of our labor,
Yeah.
in the next days and weeks, to know that what we were making changes to is having a positive impact on the agent performance.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really seeing that like you guys had formed this very virtuous feedback loop cycle from
Oh,
like the AI agent responses, updating the knowledge base, and then like seeing it go back out again. I think like the knowledge base is a very important piece in there to kind of like be that source of truth. Um, cool. What does the future kind of look like for your knowledge base? Like where is the next frontier for you guys?
I have some
Yeah,
thoughts, but JP, go for it.
jumping right in. So we hinted at this a little bit when talking about the exercise of going through and reviewing all the agent responses, and making that indication of the resource status, right? The state of the knowledge base content related to that issue. Selecting the one of the options that indicates, hey, we need an update or enhancement to knowledge base content would then populate that ticket in the pile and knowledge gaps feature, which essentially our technical writers could use as a workflow tool, right? You can go in there, you can see, okay, these are the most recent indications that knowledge base content is needed, or there's even AI feature functionality in there that will combine um, across issues, common topics where we've indicated a knowledge base need. And so that's a great way for the technical writers to be able to prioritize updates to the knowledge base. And this is really that support engine that we like to talk about, where it's issues come in, maybe at first you have the human agent answer, respond. They can make an indication, though, of a need for knowledge-based enhancement. The technical writers can then incorporate that into the knowledge base. And the next time that topic comes around, boom, you have knowledge-based content ready and available for the agencies to answer that ticket, possibly without human intervention. So that's really the vision for the future state of the knowledge base is an indication of a need. It's completed by the technical writer, and then it's ready and able to be used by the agent in the future.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that one use case we're not fully leveraging yet, but actively building toward is one of the more powerful things the platform enables is those internal articles that aren't visible to the general public, but can still be used to train AI agents, namely our co-pilot for the team. So you can go to support.hackerrank.com right now, see all of our docs. They're public facing. You can interact with them, leverage the Ask AI, which is one of our internal team's favorite features on this. but that we actually have, and those are, again, our public-facing docs that we have our technical writing team working on. Our support team can use Pylon features to recognize things that we need to know amongst ourselves, but we would never publish publicly to, in the same docs. And so the ability for the team to be able to literally click buttons, create this documentation, have it be internal, and training our agents in real time is going to be what helps us gear up to be able to start bringing agentic responses into our customer base very carefully for the most forgiving customer base we have anyway. So I'm really excited about that particular capability.
Cool. I also see that there's a question to potentially see the workflow itself.
Ooh.
So just real quick for the folks online, let's...
Good call. These are very Pylon specific features. Like if you know, but like, yeah.
What are you seeing my screen, the improvements tab? I hope. V?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
it's very tiny on my screen, admittedly. Like I'm not
Yeah.
sure how to make it.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Let me know if I can try and
There we
zoom
go.
in a little bit.
There we go.
Okay, cool. So what this kind of looks like day to day. So there are two different windows you can see this in. The first here, though, which is probably more relevant, is if you're looking at one of the AI agents inside of Pylon, you can kind of see all of the different escalation topics that are topics that are coming in, and the number of times like it's been mentioned. And so there's going to be a suggestion here around like, hey, like this topic keeps keeps pinging the actual team, and maybe we need to write or update an article. So it looks like there's a gap in the knowledge about why people are unable to send previews, and so maybe it's about time that we generate that diff in the knowledge base, and then add that suggested AI change, accept or reject. So here I'm going to discard this. The cool thing about this is you get the immediate feedback of like, hey, this will get rid of 3 different questions here, and you can kind of see that performance increase over time with all of the metrics. So this is kind of what it'll look like. On the actual issues themselves, you'll also be able to see that KCS flow run, as well as so here's another knowledge base of mine where this one's missing a resource, and so off of the answer that you gave in that question, you can generate a draft article directly into a template if you want. So you can kind of like work off of that. JP or V, do you have any other things you wanted to add to this flow? I guess I didn't walk through the QA flow just yet, but that's also a different kind of flow.
Another feature that could be worth mentioning is the AI KB article generation from within the ticket.
Yes. So let's see if I can find a nice ticket for us to generate off of.
This is the magic.
Yeah. So this is a silly ticket that I made a few days ago, but one of the really cool things is that you can directly from here, after answering the question and closing it out for the first time, you can then generate the article from all of that content directly from here. So you're immediately acting on that feedback loop of, hey, this is a question that I know will come up again. Why don't I just generate the article right now into a template? Like, I suspect this won't generate anything reasonable because there's nothing here, but we can try it out.
Do it.
It might just say like not enough content.
Live demo, folks. Anything could happen. Look at that.
So yeah, generated a very quick article here off of my answer. Usually this is a little bit more fleshed out. It'll also look at all the images and everything, and then it's about time for you to like look at this and then publish it after reviewing. So
human in the loop, right? It doesn't just publish it and you're like, cool, I don't know what it mentioned, but there it is out in the world. No, it keeps people involved.
Yep, exactly. The really cool thing here is we're building out a KB article review flow for an AI to also review and leave comments if a human writes an article. So yeah, kind of like the flip of it. Um, I think JP, you had touched on this a little bit, but and I also kind of pointed it out, but Pylon in the knowledge base is also looking for whether this is something that doesn't have any resources available or whether it needs updating or whether like the article you just generated is a duplicate of another. So there will be warnings so that you don't bloat your knowledge base out quite a bit. So cool. Hopefully that was a good overview for the folks at home. Let's see if there's
Jake, tell us if we got your question answered. Cool.
cool. Great. I think one last topic that I'm curious to hear your thoughts on is how do you think of the difference between your knowledge base and your documentation? Uh,
Ooh.
I have an answer, but yeah.
Yeah, I actually learned a lot from y'all on this particular topic. I would say we have a website with more of our marketing materials separated out. We don't have Pylon really involved in that, but upon joining, it was really all mishmashed together. And it was sort of like our knowledge base was having an identity sort of crisis. Like, who am I? Am I a marketing sort of thing? But I also want to show how to do things too. So I'll do both. So we've, not so much, we've just sort of decoupled that identity just in our own company's ability to realize where marketing materials belong and what knowledge-based content should look like. Yeah, I don't know if you have anything to add on that one, JP.
Yeah, I think you touched on it mostly, but now it's quite simple. Support.hackerrank.com is where we house all the customer-facing knowledge-based content, and so it makes it really easy to kind of organize and go in and get what you need, and that's where the agents plug in as well.
Yep. Yeah, I think you guys hit the nail on the head where the knowledge base really is more customer facing, more for support, more getting into the nitty gritty, versus the docs are more of that marketing material for your prospects, more high level kind of pitching the customer almost. It would be really weird to show customer or prospects like all the like, oh, when you get to this random corner case, like you should
Yeah.
do this and like it'll break in this way, right? You don't really want to show them all the workarounds. So that's kind of like where that difference comes into play, and where like the KCS flow really shines, or the feedback loop kind of shines, right? Like you
Yeah.
do want some place to hold all that knowledge, but it really shouldn't be prospect facing. So
Yes, exactly.
nice. Let's see if there are any good questions that are coming in here. I see one with 2 votes, or two of them with 2 votes. Danielle, good to see you. Does that need to be manually done through the UI and initiated by someone, or can you set up a workflow to notify a Slack channel when an article should be updated and the suggested updates? Yeah, JP, curious on your flow, like regardless of like what she's asking for, I guess like what have you kind of found is like the optimal setup for you?
I think for us, given that we do have a highly technical product, and a wide-ranging customer base that V alluded to at the beginning, it is important for human in the loop setup to be in place so that we know that we're confidently recommending changes to the knowledge base. That'll involve the technical writing team. They're also quite stretched, so we want to make sure we're being as efficient with their time as possible. So making sure that the quality of those updates is high is key. But certainly, you could. There are a few different ways that you might be able to automate that process, like using AI to autofill the resource status field and then setting up a trigger based on value in that field, then notifying a Slack channel, for example, or notifying an individual via Slack or email. So there are a lot of different ways to go about incorporating additional automation into that process. And we've kind of used some of those techniques in other contexts, but certainly could be applicable here.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I do think that it might get a little noisy if you do have a Slack notification for every article that needs to be updated as well. The whole idea of the UI that you saw is that you can sort it by importance because like there will probably be like 1,000 articles that you, or 1,000 different escalations that you could make articles for, but they might be one-offs. And oftentimes you don't actually want to clutter your knowledge base with all of those like random one-off questions. And so the whole idea is that it's probably better to look at that list and just be like, okay, let's try and target the top like 50 questions, because we know that those top 50 questions can get rid of 90% of our questions or something like that. So usually it's not really like a do everything kind of flow. So nice. See, all the questions are coming in. Okay, cool. Let's see. Isam has asked, with the new MCP integration with Claude, can Claude update the KB? Would be awesome to do that. We are actively thinking about that on our side at Pylon. So I think we're noticing Claude is very, and this is a little bit further off from the topic today, but we're noticing Claude is very good at certain things, but not at others. So if you are okay with working out of like that one text box, it's very powerful, but oftentimes very limiting, because you kind of do need a little bit more almost UI and like business logic around it. And so we're trying to figure out like what works and what doesn't. For example, through Claude, it's going to be very hard if you build up any more advanced like review processes or human in the loop processes, because Claude is just a big terminal window. Like it doesn't help you see the set of things that need to get done. So generally, as you get bigger as a company, we're noticing that like Claude and just that chat-based UI isn't necessarily the right place to do it. So
And we have the Claude connector. We're using it now, and I'll share it first. It was sort of like, and just in terms of Claude AI, it was sort of like, well, what would I ask that I can't ask Pylon AI? Sort of like, man, what do I even do? Where do I start here? So we're playing with it too. I'm glad you called out like the business logic side of it, because that's definitely sort of a barrier in being able to share Claude and have natural language prompts to answer questions about your ticketing system. You really need to know, like for us, we use the priority to dictate, we use that to attach to customer segments as a way to just baseline priority. So our most strategic enterprise customers are P0s. But if you don't know that and you just ask Claude about enterprise customers, you might not get the same results as if you know, oh, P0 tickets. So just mapping that in the instructions makes for a better tool if you are going to do analytics or data, or just try to get some insights out of Claude. But it's been really exciting to explore. So I'm excited to see what all we can do with it.
Yeah, I was definitely Claude code pilled a few weeks ago, and I'm now doing almost all of my work out of Claude. So it's pretty good. But yeah, there's a lot of things where you do still need to kind of use the tool for sure. So cool. Let's see. And then a question from Kim. I'm curious about internal versus external KB and the differences in training/reinforcing the AI for these. Yeah, I'm forgetting. Do you guys have the internal knowledge base or any of the internal articles, I want to say, in your knowledge bases? I'm forgetting.
I know in the candidate tenant we do. JP, what do you know about this?
Generally, we have the agents trained on our external facing knowledge base content. Interesting use case came up actually yesterday with a customer specific article where we want to enable the agent to use that article to answer questions from that customer's candidates only, but ignore that article for all other candidates. This is our candidate side of the house. So that's something that we're figuring out with Pylon support team right now. But generally, our agents are trained on and referencing the external facing knowledge base content.
Yeah, and I think that's the important thing to note too with our knowledge base and any knowledge base is there will be sort of layers of permissioning of who can see what. And I think it's very important that permissioning structure flows down to the actual AI agent, and as well as the human agents too, of like who can see what. And I think like that is oftentimes, those details are oftentimes lost if you're just kind of like dumping everything into an AI and having it spit something out. There's a lot of nuance, especially around like RBAC permissioning security. So
Not the
It's
what I think this is super exciting because in support, it's sort of like we come from the mindset on support should be the same for as much of our customer base as possible, right? Just for the maintainability of support. And when we have these exceptions, number one, we should only make them for our most important customers. That's one of these cases. And then when you do, you have to be really careful about making sure things work correctly. So as we see greater capabilities and the ability to do that, it just opens the doors for such a more tailored and customer specific experience on the same products. So pretty cool.
yeah, and there's cool things that we can do in the future where like today in the knowledge base you can leave you not only can the articles themselves be entirely internal, but you can leave internal notes already. So like say there's like some complex setup and from the customer's perspective they see like steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but you want to say like, oh, step 4, be careful of this internal person who's helping them. Like you can leave that note in there, and AI is good enough to interpret like, that's like an internal note that I need to tell the internal agent versus like what I tell the end customer. So there's really cool things that you can start doing.
Yes.
Yeah. I know that I want to try and go to future questions or keep moving along. So we'll come back to some of these questions at the end. But why don't we kind of head forward? So I think we kind of already touched on this one. So a lot of like AI and how that fits into the knowledge base. I guess like taking a step back, how how has this whole AI loop kind of changed your understanding of just how knowledge bases should be run? Like where do you see the future of just like support and knowledge? Where do you see that heading as an industry, not just like at HackerRank? And what excites you about that? Yeah.
Ooh. Okay, thinking about that one, what something you said there made me think about just the real-time nature of it. Like these tools are helping us to show and flag in real time, like this specific piece of content is out of date. And we had a very real example of this week. One of our largest enterprise customers flagged a response from one of our agents, and it was a redirection message. The language implied that we would take action in a way that didn't match reality, so to speak. And when we saw this customer concern come up, we're going, oh no, is it a hallucination? Is something outdated in our knowledge base? What is the culprit? And then because we see every response is attributed back to its source, it took JP all of 5 seconds to figure out, oh no, it's a specific article. And the reason it gave this response is because the article's out of, and it just triggered this whole this like there's a whole little subset of information we now needed to update beyond this. It just sent like dominoes into effect, like, oh, and so within 24 hours, I think, because Abu Bakr doesn't sleep and is amazing and we're spoiled by him, along with our amazing product teams, it just got fixed in real time. So the chances of docs going stale and the expectation that docs will be real time and accurate, I think we're going to see that expectation as one shift. Whereas to a degree, I think knowledge bases were largely forgotten about, not because people like, but just other things going on, and knowledge base tends to get overlooked. But now, no longer the case. What do you think, JP?
Yeah, I mean, at previous stops, knowledge bases were maybe a bit disjointed. Maybe you have content in different places, but you know, without AI, generally your knowledge-based content is static, and it relies on humans to be able to surface needs for updates. Which, unless you have someone whose sole role it is to now monitor the knowledge-based content for being current, then that's really difficult to maintain. So incorporating AI and some of the pylon tooling is incredibly helpful. I can see a world where, we sort of chatted about this a few questions ago, but where you have the agent or the AI being able to recognize and indicate a state of the knowledge-based content with regard to a particular topic. And then if you were to combine that with the capability of the AI to generate a knowledge base article, you could see a world where with enough trust in AI's capabilities that the entire process of updating, creating content in your knowledge base, could be automated. So that's pretty exciting. I guess unless you're a technical writer, but there's still some in the loop need there, even if it's fully automated. But that's an exciting possibility.
I'll share one other thing is that I personally I love knowledge. Their knowledge bases are great, but I find that we're really agents are going to be using knowledge bases more so than people. And I don't know if anyone else has had this experience where you engage support and they send you a knowledge base link and it's almost I don't want a link. I don't want to have to go read and find the answer. I want the answer. And then if I want to know more, sure, send me the link. But when it's just like a cold experience, when you engage with support, a human, and you're expecting a human response, and here they just get a link. I don't know. I don't like that experience. So that's where I see knowledge bases going is really powering tools that'll surface the answer and less about sharing links to the actual knowledge base itself.
Yeah, I think there's like two really fundamental shifts that you guys had pointed out. The first is what you were saying, Dee, where fundamentally how you interact with support is about to change, both with the speed of it, but also just like it just giving you the answer instead of you looking at an article. And then I think JP, you brought up a really good point where the lag time of everything is squashing down into nothing, right? And one of the cool things we're testing out right now, this is I don't think I've told you guys this, but one of the things we're testing out right now is looking at your code base and trying to find, as soon as changes hit your code base, all of the changes that you need to do on your knowledge base. So, right, because the code technically is the ground truth on how the product acts and works. So that should be pretty cool and like really closing that gap even more.
And when is that coming?
Yeah, we're experimenting with it. So
that's like a mic drop game changer. Like, yes, please. Okay, let us know.
I also think that because of all of these different processes, I think we've also observed that like previously only the largest of large companies that have built up this huge knowledge management team with like a bunch of technical writers was able to even approach something that looks like this KCS feedback loop. But now it's possible to kind of like bring that further and further down market to like a lot of these smaller companies that might not have the mind share or the capacity to like spin up these huge teams. And I think that's really cool. So yeah. All right, sweet. Cool. Let's go on to the next question. Yeah. So I know that we've been talking about like the current support team and like the knowledge team, but curious like how this is kind of like spread out and propagated to the other teams and how other teams at HackerRank kind of interact with the knowledge base and your team and Pylon in general. So.
I'm going to intro JP into this one. So we mentioned we have 3 tenants, but we've only talked about 2. We have our customer tenant, we have our candidate tenant. We also have a tenant specific to our community. So if you're a developer and you're looking to level up your skills in sort of a gamified approach of earning badges and learning new things, we have our community site that anyone can register and start learning and exploring. So JP has done a lot of work on the community tenant that really showcases this point. There's your cue. There's your work, JP. Take it over.
Thank you. Yeah, we have a engineering team dedicated to the community tenant. We refer to them as our labs team, but they're our community eng team. And they have built and maintained their own knowledge base specific to community topics. They obviously have their own Pylon tenant with its own AI agent. And we're automating between 30 and 40% of support volume there as well. And so I've done a lot of close work with that team to ensure that their processes and automations are where we want them to be. But that's a great example of we have support, we have our technical writers, but then we have an engineering team independent of those functions at HackerRank that's using Pylon, using the knowledge base in their own way, using their own AI agents, and iterating upon the process that we put in place there. So a really good example of kind of cross-pollination of some of Pylon's capabilities across the org.
Yeah. And curious, how do you cross-functionally kind of collaborate when you do have like the engineering team in one tenant and you guys in the other two? Like where do you see the best like synergy and like cross idea transference?
Honestly, my approach since cut over to Pylon has been any learnings from one tenant are likely to be applicable in another, in both of the others. So we should make sure that we're taking those opportunities when we do come across things, say in the customer tenant, that we're thinking through. Okay, how might this impact workflows in the community tenant, or how might this impact candidates? And is there a change that maybe we should make to the way that we're doing things there? So definitely, while they each operate independently, there's an obvious relationship between the customers and the candidates who are taking assessments for those customers. But they really are all part of this one living, breathing organism. And it's important to think about them that way. Really, just applying learnings across all three.
Yeah.
This also changed our relationship with this team. So a couple years ago, the support team was literally like, customer issues, candidates, community. And all that support really did for the community was to help surface the issues that this engineering team needed to see. So we brought in Pylon, JP took over the entire program, and suddenly we've gifted them their own instance where they can have their own triggers, where they can set things up so Pylon triggers are showing them the same thing that a human used to have to point out, right? So it freed up our support team again to focus on our B2B work. And now we've empowered another team and made it very easy for them to see the work that they need to see up front and make sure those issues are handled too. So it's a really cool way that we've been able to set that up, that JP's been able to set all that up, the entire program.
Yeah, and like a cool example is one that actually happened this month, where the labs and community eng team wanted to set up a process where they could use OpsGenie to post an alert to their on-call whenever a paid or subscribed community user has an urgent issue. And that's not really a concept that necessarily exists in terms of differentiating that way in the other tenants. But using processes that we had set up in the other tenants, we're able to very quickly put up something together for this community use case. It just, in a matter of a few minutes, really. So that was a really cool kind of live example of, hey, I know exactly how we can set this up for you based on a process that we've set up in the customer tenant or the candidate tenant. Here's how we'll tweak it, and it's ready to go live, same day.
Cool. That's really cool to hear that story of the two sides going from an adversarial, frictionful, hair on fire, kind of underwater setup to almost like a collaborative, like, hey,
Yeah.
like, let me help you with that thing that I was able to solve. And like, it just sounds like a really cool kind of a story from negative NPS to positive NPS, or negative CSAT to positive CSAT. So cool. Great. I think we've touched upon this a tiny bit, but really wanted to dig into like the actual on the ground metrics. Like, what are you measuring? Why even put in those metrics? Like the thinking behind them, and when is the right time to even do something with metrics versus just kind of like intuitively going off of vibes. So,
You want to take this one, JP?
One metric that's perhaps obvious is agent response rate, right? The number of or percentage of tickets that the agent's able to resolve using KB content is going to be a good indicator of the state of our KB, particularly how it's matching up with what are the real issues that customers are having. So that's one that we monitor really closely in the QA stage and setting up the agents in the first place, but then on an ongoing basis, being able to report on that is a good indication of KB state. Also, our time to acknowledge and time to resolution metrics. When you have a AI agent in place providing real-time responses, that tends to do pretty good things to your time to acknowledge metrics. So being able to see that a positive impact there over time, even as volumes spike or there are changes in the team. It's really cool to see us be able to go where we want with those metrics, given the agents and the state of the knowledge base.
And I know that like those metrics are important for your team and understanding whether the KB is like improving, and whether the support team is improving. I guess like, are those the same metrics that get presented to the leadership team, and kind of like get presented upward?
Ooh, uh-oh. I'm not sure we're reporting on anything upward, which maybe we should, right? Which kind of goes back to like the place, like knowledge base kind of being this forgotten thing. We do have, the functionality to like thumbs up or thumbs down an article. So we do a lot of that, but because our stuff is available to the public, a lot of it's our own internal teams in terms of number of views, right? We can't really separate from our own companies looking at the articles versus customers and some of that. Well, what do you think, JP? Which we be measuring and reporting?
We do report on those.
Goodness for JP. Everyone needs a JP. Oh my goodness. Thank you. Yes, tell us, because I definitely knew that. I was just, preparing the conversation.
No, we do report on those, and Pylon makes it easy to report given the powerful capabilities of the analytics tool, and it's even presentable to a live audience the way that it's very intuitive to be able to go in and show what you want. You can use AI prompts to do such, and so that's been really helpful. So yeah, I mean, I think we do report on these, and we'll use some of the findings to help drive conversations around, well, are we prioritizing tickets the right way? Are we staffing appropriately? Looking at different times of day that we have ticket spikes, and what kinds of issues are coming in, and of those, which are the agents able to cover without human intervention. So there are a lot of directions you can kind of go with some of the metrics that Pylon makes available to help inform even more strategic conversations.
Yeah, and confession, I was looking at the previous slide specifically on the knowledge base program. I didn't realize we had flipped to like,
oh, sorry, I forgot the slide. Yeah,
report a lot to leadership on that one. I gotta retract that one. Live recording. Very much customer specific things, right? Like which customers are seeing the most interactions with support. It could be, we have a product that requires a lot of touch points with our support team to be successful, which is one of the reasons we've brought in Pylon to help with make some of those touch points that should be real time, the low hanging fruit, low risk stuff, really more real time. But we definitely want to know like containment is a big one for us. So how many issues are resolved within support? How many go to engineering? We have a really low containment rate. I think we're around 4 to 5%. The things that do get escalated are bugs. So we're really tight there, and those are some of the metrics that I think matter the most, because those are the friction points, right? So when we're sharing with our go-to-market teams the dashboard, we're most interested in support volumes week over week and tracking those, especially around a quarterly release period or some other change to our offerings. We want to be able to monitor that. We care about the area of the product, like where are we seeing the most questions and concerns, the customers that are seeing the most tickets, but really that biggest friction point for us in terms of the customer experience tends to be in the bugs, things that get escalated to engineering. So containment's great, but containment's a very supporty word, right? And the 5% metrics means a lot to support professionals, but leadership, our go-to-market teams are like, but then when they have a chart where they can dig in and see all of the escalations and then track it back to the ticket and then go into the ticket and actually see the comments from engineering without having to go there, that gives the visibility they need to have the other piece of what's going on with their customers who aren't including them on the support tickets. So it's a whole other piece of visibility that our support team is able to give, along with all of the phenomenal things in the account summaries and the sentiment and all of that's one of my favorite features of Pylon, by the way, is being able to look at the individual account and saying like, okay, of this customer, what's the current sentiment? How many tickets do they have? Who are their stakeholders? What are their primary use cases? having all of that, those account summaries from Pylon, is like an additional layer we can give from those high level metrics. So it starts with volume, it starts with knowing the big stuff, but then the ability to drill into those has been a really big differentiator for our leadership.
Cool. Thank you so much, V and JP. I realize we were bumping up against time here. It was a really fun discussion that we had today. I know we didn't get to answer all of the questions, so please reach out to us or Hacker or V or and JP and the HackerRank team whenever, or if you have follow-up questions that you want answered here. And I know we have Slack channels with a bunch of the folks who ask questions as well, so just drop it in the channel. But thank you so much, everybody, for coming from the folks around the world. We will be releasing a recording of the webinar later if you want to revisit it. And thank you so much, everybody, for joining.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.